So we should say we are an R-rated district, because that's all we concentrate about. I just hope that you guys be mindful that children don't come to school to have sex.
At a Miami-Dade school board meeting this summer, a battle erupts over sex education. At issue, 2 sex education textbooks for middle and high school students. Some of the book's most controversial sections about gender identity and sexual orientation were already removed by the board in April.
If the board does not approve the textbooks, they will be taking away the rights of everyone to public education that is based on facts and science.
But after the uproar, the board voted to get rid of the books altogether, temporarily leaving students with no sex education curriculum for the upcoming school year. It turns out that state capitals and school boards are becoming high-stakes battlegrounds over sex education, with organized groups trying to do away with lessons about contraception, safe sex, and increasingly, lessons about consent.
It's setting students up to be accepting of sexual advances from anyone, thinking that it's okay, it's all right, it's perfectly normal, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, and I have a right to it. That goes against the values of many families.
Suzanne Gallagher runs the national nonprofit Parents' Rights in Education.
Should we be teaching consent to students to tell them right from wrong, yes and no, the difference?
You know, I advocate teaching young girls self-defense.
Self-defense puts the onus on possibly someone who might be getting assaulted to act right or wrong.
Her website says teaching consent undermines any semblance of an abstinence message. In Brownsville, Texas, 17-year-old Kenya Gonzalez says her high school doesn't teach any sex education beyond abstinence, and that worries her.
They don't teach consent, which is horrible, because I know people who didn't know they have been sexually assaulted. They describe the experience, and then it's just like, hey, but you didn't say yes.
Here's what we do know. In 2019, the CDC surveyed over 1,200 high school senior girls, and they found nearly 1 in 7 of these girls nationwide say that they have been physically forced into sex at some point in their lives. And of the 15 states with the highest teen birth rates, a Newsy analysis found 12 stress teaching abstinence. Only 2 require teaching about consent. And Kenya is worried about what happens when teens are left to learn about sex on the streets.
Men are also taught to get what they want without the teaching of consent. So they're just like, woman, she will say yes because I'm a macho man. And that's how rape happens. That's how sexual assault happens.
But we discovered it's no accident that Kenya and her classmates won't be learning about consent. Records we uncovered show how the Texas Association Against Sexual Assault and the Texas Medical Association each pushed the Texas State Board of Education to begin teaching consent to children for this upcoming school year. But when a group called the Medical Institute for Sexual Health and more than 1,000 community members expressed opposition to any efforts to teach the topic, the state board ruled it agreed with them and has determined that sexual consent was not appropriate.
It is a failure of our society in its entirety to not teach it. As far as I'm concerned, it's one of the most important things you can be teaching.
Shale Norris runs Safe Bay, a national advocacy group working to prevent sexual violence that produces videos like these for teens to learn about consent.
If someone is pressuring you into something you don't want to do, that is not consent.
We showed her how the Texas board chose teaching personal boundaries and refusal skills at some grade levels instead of consent.
Instead of putting the blame where it belongs on the perpetrator, the victim takes on that responsibility, and you are also putting them at risk of death, actual suicide, if they are victimized and they feel responsible.
Which is why many advocates say it's important to teach consent early, starting with kindergartners learning that it's okay to say yes or no to any interaction, like holding hands or even hugs. Medical Institute for Sexual Health, the group that told the state that it opposed any teaching of consent in Texas, did not respond to multiple requests for an interview in response to written questions asking if they'd support non-sexual consent lessons for elementary school or any lessons for high schoolers. They said through a PR firm that the organization believes that school-aged children understand the meaning of yes and no. We believe that they should refuse sexual advances. The answer should be no. Now, there isn't much research yet into the impact of teaching consent on preventing sexual assault. But the American Academy of Pediatrics, representing 67,000 pediatricians, is among a host of medical and educational authorities that endorse teaching comprehensive sexuality education, including consent.
Teaching consent puts the onus on the possible aggressor. They have to understand whether or not they have the right to force themselves on someone or not.
Correct. And they also need to be taught that they have a responsibility if there is a pregnancy and a child is born.
But preventing sexual assaults and unwanted pregnancies in the first place is Kenya Gonzalez's goal.
I want age-appropriate sex ed and consent taught from like elementary all the way to high schools.
And in Miami, passionate parents pushing for the same prevailed.
We are concerned by the continued attempt from extremist groups to censor books and the curriculum we offer.
And convinced the school board there to reinstate their textbooks, which do teach consent for this school year.
Mark Greenblatt is here with us tonight. Mark, watching this, I had the question, what does consent mean in these lessons? Because you hear some advocates say you need to explicitly say the word yes, sometimes several times throughout the interaction. You hear some advocates say if you don't remember it, that was an assault. And the criticism is that's overly broad. So what are they wanting to teach the kids about consent?
Well, I mean, bottom line, Chance, they want to teach them that yes means yes. This is sort of new from no means no. That a yes is actually important here. And if you don't have a yes, if you're in an interaction and someone is asleep, for instance, they've passed out, that can land you in a lot of trouble. It can land you in jail. And one of the best things that I've seen about this, it's got millions of hits online, is this video where it compares consent to drinking a cup of tea. So I brought myself my Newsy cup here to talk to you about it. And what it basically says is that if you make a cup of tea for somebody and you hand it to them and they say, gosh, I really want that cup of tea. Well, that's consent right there. They said, yeah, I want it. But if you take your time, you buy some really great tea at the supermarket, you make it, you're ready to deliver it, but then somebody's asleep, well, don't force them to drink the tea.
Right.
Or if they just say, you know, I don't really want to feel like to drink that tea anymore, don't force it down their throat. And so that yes, and that conscious yes, and even an enthusiastic yes, is what people who are teaching this concept of consent are really trying to teach people, that it's really important to hear that, and that it's also something that you can take away. Just because you said, yes, I want my cup of tea on a Saturday night, doesn't mean that they want that cup of tea on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. They could take it away at any time.
I see. Okay, that's clarifying that maybe if they say, great, I'd love that, rather than, yes, I would love that, that they can, you kind of have to be connected to somebody and really listen to what they're saying. Got it. That issue of abstinence also, clearly this parent feels strongly about that. You're a dad, I'm a dad. A lot of parents hope our kids pursue abstinence, you know. I think that seems, you know, that's not unusual, right?
That's real.
Okay. And is it realistic? Well, maybe not as realistic as a lot of parents would hope. When it comes to teens and sex and things like that, do we know what's going on right now?
Well, look, as a dad, you know, I'm right there with you. You know, I would prefer abstinence.
Yeah.
You know, now, as an investigative reporter, I started digging into the numbers along with our team, and what I saw really kind of blew my mind. And here's what's up, Chance. You know, get this. Most of the country, by the time you're a high school senior, the majority of high school seniors are actually having sex, or they've had sex. The majority of high school seniors are actually having sex.
Wow.
So that's the case. Now, we also dug into different states that teach abstinence. And if they teach abstinence in conjunction with a whole bunch of other things, those are the areas that are actually delaying the initiation of sex longer. The American Academy of Pediatrics has said that they've done, you know, conclusive research reviews of all the studies that are out there, and they've said that the places that actually only focus on promoting abstinence are actually ineffective at doing that.
So what delays it the most if you do abstinence plus the other stuff?
Abstinence plus the other stuff is what the doctors who have studied this at the large associations, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Medical Association, they want to teach and promote abstinence. They just don't want to do it in isolation because they're aware of that first statistic that so many high schoolers are out there already having sex. So when they make that choice, they want to make sure that they have information to be safe about it, to prevent sexually transmitted diseases, and they sort of don't want to bury their heads in the sand as to what's actually happening on the ground.